When you have a podcast organized in the afternoon, my advice is do not take a different route to the studio. What normally is a 15-minute drive became 55 minutes stuck in traffic, sweaty, stress, and unsure if I was going to make today's session. But we're here. We're in the studio. We made it. Welcome back to the Future Self podcast. Welcome to season 4, episode 24. You and I are sitting down together again. If you're on the treadmill, keep walking. If you're driving your car, you already are seated. If you're on a walk in the countryside, the ocean, or the city, that is our version of sitting down together today. You already know what today is going to be about because you tuned in yet again to the podcast to listen to this young kid spit his interests, thoughts, complexities, feelings, and admirations to you. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about people pleasing. You're guilty. I'm guilty. We're all guilty. However, some more guilty than others. Some used to, some do now, and some will continue. So what is people pleasing? We've heard it. Someone's called us out on it before. Someone has said it to you. Oh, you're such a people pleaser. So let me define what a people pleaser is. People pleasing is a behavior pattern characterized by a strong desire to gain approval and avoid conflict by prioritizing others' needs, desires, and expectations, often at the expense of one's own well-being, values, or boundaries. Where does people pleasing often come from? Where's its roots of origin? People pleasing can come from growing up in a conditional household where X gains you Y. It can come from having emotionally demanding care figures whilst you're in the time and period of initiation, developing your emotions, your thought processes, and your mindsets as a young, impressionable child or teen. It can come from parentification, which is where a child parents a parent. It can come from fear of rejection or abandonment. It can stem intensely from an anxious attachment style. It can come from being overly praised for being good or easy. So more often than not, people pleasing stems from the origin when we're young. It does not mean it can't develop in your middle, teens, early 20s, or your later in life period, as a parent or even a grandparent. Traumatic events can create someone to be a people pleaser. Consistent stress and exposure to friction can create someone to be a people pleaser. We all know a people pleaser. Now, one thing I've been thinking about when it comes to this style and dynamic of individual is they are momentarily liked for a long-term disrespect or dislike. They are the individuals we like in the moment. They laugh at our joke. They add to our bitching comments. They join in when we're doing the wrong thing. They do what we say. They go against their boundaries. They're there when we need them. They help us without us having to help them. We like them in the moment, but we do not like them in the long term. We don't respect them in the long term. And I've been saying it quite a bit recently because it's been on my mind a lot at the moment. Those that are liked all the time are disliked or disrespected long term. Those that aren't necessarily liked in the moment, they might not agree with what we have to say. They're not adding to the bitching. They're not doing what we want them to do. They stand on their values, boundaries, or thought processes. But we respect those individuals. They're the ones we trust. They're the ones we go to for advice. They're the ones that we can count on in times of need. Now that's tricky because no one wants to be disliked. No one wants to be isolated. No one wants to be that guy or girl. We want to be the opposed, the guy or girl that people like, the people want to have around, that is fun, is caring, enjoyable, has a laugh. However, the people pleaser is liked in the moment and disliked in the long term. More often than not, everyone else is aware that the person is a people pleaser other than the person. Everyone else can see it. Everyone knows that they do what you tell them to do, will agree with what you have to say, will laugh at your jokes, will chime in on exactly what you are doing. We all know that they're going to do that. When it comes to people pleasing, it often doesn't stem from a malice origin story. You don't choose to become a person pleaser. It's more often than not, from my personal experience of what I've seen, coached, and been around, it is a slippery sloped transition. You get positive reinforcement or positive words of affirmations when you go against what you want and do what someone else wants. You realize you do it enough times with one person, they're now inviting you to the events. You're now the person that everyone is hanging around. You get this momentary positive return. Yet, behind closed doors, that individual does not get the positive affirmation for who they truly are. You can be a kind person with a good heart and still say no. I've done a podcast episode talking about saying no and how difficult it is, but you can be a good person and still say no. I have learnt I have a lot more respect, appreciation, and admiration for those that disagree with what I have to say, that call me out when I'm doing the wrong thing, that give me advice and feedback, that knows I tried so hard but knows I could be better. So they push me to be that individual. Yes, I will admit, at times I would love someone to be an echo chamber. You're doing great, nothing to change, keep it up. But in reality, when I zoom out and I don't look through the lens of emotions, I don't want to be around those individuals. I want to be around people who stand on what they believe, but are fluid in the way they think and move. They have ideas, they have opinions, they have thoughts, but they can conversate, bounce off, discuss, debate. It's super interesting, right? The people pleaser almost can piss you off in a way because they're so agreeable and they're so there that it agitates you. We want a little bit of friction. We want a little bit of pushback. Echo chambers tie in somewhat with people pleasers. It's a different concept, but there are parts where they do go hand in hand. And when we're out of the situation, often we look at the individual that echo chambered our situation with a little bit of disgust. Oh, you let me do that. You agreed with what I was doing. I don't even agree with it now. I look at you differently. There's this concept I've been thinking of around people pleasers, that what they avoid externally, they experience internally. A people pleaser avoids friction externally with you. They don't want to have an argument with you. However, by avoiding it externally, they experience it internally. The person that doesn't have an opinion, doesn't act who they truly are, doesn't show up as their authentic self, avoids all these conflicts, issues, and frictions. However, they do not avoid that or escape it internally. Yes, they just spend a whole day having fun, laughs, being exactly who they aren't. Check. I avoided it. Until they go home and they're laying in bed, staring up at the roof, and they are met with an intense friction internally. So this concept I've been playing around with is what we try and avoid and navigate around or under or over, we actually can't escape it completely. We end up experiencing it inside. Yes, I can escape the hard of health, running, gym, good food, but I cannot escape it internally. My organs suffer. My mental health suffers. My body is suffering. Yes, I can escape an argument with my friend externally, but internally, I'm festering on that argument all day. I should have said this. I can't believe they said that. I wanted to express this thought process. I wish they would hear me out. I give this analogy to my clients all the time. You can escape your taxes now, but you have to pay the tax man eventually. There are those that pay their taxes along the way. They're not met with a bill. They're met with a consistent flow of a bill. There are those that escape the tax man, live it up, and then eventually they are smacked with a compounded bill. You cannot avoid paying the tax man. So although the people pleaser, the person that is inauthentic and avoiding all these frictions externally, is doing a good job of that, they are unable to do it internally. The person who doesn't speak up festers on, wishing they could all day. The person who is liked for who they aren't thinks about it all day. The person who avoids the argument in their relationship to keep their partner happy stores that inside all day. The person who was rubber-armed into taking drugs and drinking that night deals with that the next day. The person who laughs at the individual's jokes, never calls them out, deals with an internal conflict of knowing they have a friend that they don't actually respect. What we avoid externally, we experience internally. So if we flip the script, what we experience internally, we can progress externally. If we become a person that does not people please and deal with the frictions internally, learn to overcome adversity, learn to back yourself, operate through self-respect, develop the skills to deal with friction, learn to sit with those uncomfortable emotions, be who you truly are, be authentic, be real. Show up as yourself. Deal with all these things internally. Fight it, progress it, understand it, learn it, develop it. Externally, you no longer have to navigate the minefield of being a people pleaser. There's so many examples I have in my mind, but more often than not, it comes back to the individual that has no boundaries, struggles to operate through strong, rigid self-respect, and is rubber-armed into doing things they don't want to. Whether it's going out and drinking, whether it's bitching, gossiping, whether it's getting takeout, whether it's clashing on your plan, on your boundaries. We all know a human like that. And yes, although that individual thinks they're checking the boxes, I'm liked, people want me around, I'm fun, people come to me, I've got all these people around me. They have all these people around them that like them for a version that is not true to who they are. Imagine molding yourself to be a version that other people like. So you go to bed at night knowing, yes, I'm liked. People like me. Well, wait a second. They don't like me. They like who I'm acting, being. They like the person I have strategically cultivated to operate from. You try so hard to be liked, invited, be that person that people want to have around, yet it's not for you. It's for a character, a role that you play. So yes, well done. You have 100 friends. You've been to 50 birthday parties this year. You're invited to every weekend. You have all these comments on your Instagram posts. People are always hyping you up, but not for who you truly are. Do you know how much conflict that surfaces? How much dysregulation that builds? How could you build self-respect if you're showing up as a version that isn't who you truly are? How could you back yourself, believe in yourself, like yourself, be proud of yourself, push yourself, set goals for yourself, show up for yourself? How can you if you're not showing up as an authentic version of you? The biggest struggle I have experienced in the last 6 months being in Bali has been an intensified radar of inauthenticity here. Now, it's not just specific to here. The reason I'm being so direct and strong about here is when I first came to Bali, I loved it. Everyone here was amazing, magical. Wow, I'm not a black sheep. Wow, these people are unreal. Tall poppy's not a thing. True. But inauthenticity is. People acting as versions, they're not. Now, acting as someone you aren't and people pleasing, again, they're not the same thing, but they tie in super heavy. Pretending to be something you're not is the basis. It's the spine of people pleasing. I see so many fitness models that don't look in person what they look like on their gram. So different. Now I see there's a handful of female fitness models that are so much more beautiful in person because they have flaws. They have birthmarks, they have cellulite, they have different shaped leg muscles, upper body muscles, they're disproportionate, they're this, they have acne, all these things. Yet they show up as a version online that they're not. Imagine that. Wow, you're so beautiful, a comment on your Instagram post. Yeah, thanks. The person I'm pretending to be is beautiful, but not actually me. Authenticity and people pleasing are almost the opposing factors. It's almost what we're talking about here. To show up as your authentic self is not to be a people pleaser. Because like I said in the definition, when I stated what people pleasing is, often at the expense of one's own well-being, values, or boundaries. Now, here's a question I want you to think about for a minute. Would you rather be liked by 100 people invited to every event, but everyone knows you're that person? Yeah, you'll do what we say. Oh, they're always going to be at the kick-ons. Yeah, of course they'll stay out. Oh, no one else is doing drugs? Yeah, but this person will. Or not be liked by everyone, but be loved by those that do, because they love the authentic version of you. There is so much negativity that comes later in life from showing up as a version you aren't, and I see it all the time. It's really sad. And as I mentioned when I opened this episode, the origin stories aren't malice. And that's what makes me so upset. That it's positive reinforcements or survival mechanisms or coping strategies that get someone to be a people pleaser, and the negative aspects that come from being a person pleaser internally, or the disconnect, the dysregulation. It's just so intense. It is so hard to say no. It is so hard to have an argument with someone. It is so hard to be the one person out of 5 that has a different viewpoint. Trust me, I get it. I know that so well. It is so hard to set boundaries. It is so hard to let someone else down. It's so hard to disappoint another person. It's so hard. to have someone not like you because you showed up for you. Now, on the opposing end, it's so interesting that we dislike the person that's authentic in the moment, more often than not, but we respect them long term. We don't like the person that's not coming out with us because they make us feel like we're doing something wrong. We don't like when we're called out for gossiping about someone because it makes us feel like a bad person. We don't like when someone disagrees with the way we think or action. It makes us feel bad. We don't like the person we can't rubber arm. We don't like the individual that's not impressionable. Yet, we respect them. Yeah, don't bother inviting that individual out. There's no point. They're no fun. They're not gonna join. Oh, I'm really stuck. I need some advice. I will go exactly to that individual. The authenticity clash of people pleasing versus being authentically true to who you are. The difference is so hard. It's so hard to understand. And what I mean by so hard to understand is that it's so complex because we are the way we are for a reason and we do what we do for reasons. And I think the people pleaser that's tuning into this episode, you know it. This episode is not having a go at you. This episode is not grilling you for what you do. This is highlighting what you think we don't know, we do. What you think is hidden, we see it. The person that critically thinks can break you apart. The person that can see more than just one side understands you're not operating as who you are. Why would I want to hang around you if you don't show up as who you are? Why would I trust you with my secrets if you don't show up as who you are? Why would I care what your opinion is if you don't show up as who you are? Why would I want to be around you or have you in my life if you don't show up as who you are? Imagine how tiring that is, playing a character, playing a role. And this is why we start to see holes in people, in the way they act and what they do, because they're playing a role. Yes, the person that is impressionable 9 out of 10 times, but they snap that one time and it's such a shock. Wow, what? That's not you. Yeah, that's actually them. The 9 times otherwise is not who they are. I have a quote I wrote down, I was thinking about this morning. Imagine knowing you're a triangle, yet each day you put on a facade to be seen as a circle. What is as a moment externally builds a lifelong resentment internally. Imagine knowing you are a triangle, but you pretend to show up as a circle. The damage that causes to the structure of the triangle. The carving, the shaving, the pain. Acting as something you're not. Yes, you might be now hanging out with a group of circles, but there's a group of triangles. This is the worst analogy, forgive me. But there's a group of triangles that you don't even get to experience or be around because they don't know you're a triangle. They think you're a circle. You're missing all this magic and beauty of what can be when you be your authentic self. To experience these moments of, yeah, it's all right, it's okay. Showing up as your inauthentic self. The tough thing about the people-pleasing dynamic is humans will take advantage of what you let them get away with. So what starts as a moment of not highlighting someone clashing on your boundary once, they've done it now twice, 3 times. They do it now consistently. They're pushing into another boundary of yours and you let them. And then another boundary of yours and you let them. And now a routine that you were hoping to set up for yourself, they now control. And that is the danger and detriment, that what you let people get away with, they will take advantage. There is that quote, making a loaf of bread from a crumb. You give a little bit, they ask and demand for a whole lot. So when it comes to an individual like me and you look at me, he's way too rigid. He is way too solid, set and certain. He's not going to curve or bend for you at all. I wouldn't even bother trying. He won't budge. Yeah, it's on purpose, because you let one thing slide and the whole mountain can come crumbling down. It might not, but it can. What starts with a crumb, helps a moment. They ask for another, then it's a slice, then it's a whole loaf. It has to start somewhere. So yes, that person you label as an asshole because they're so rigid and they're so unimpressionable, maybe it's for a reason. Maybe, just maybe, they're aware that you let one thing slide and people will take advantage of that. Now, I have been so fortunate from an unfortunate situation. One of my first partners, I was such a people pleaser in that dynamic. Now, I don't know this for sure, that I'm pretty certain one of my first tattoos was because I was people pleasing. Now, that whole scenario of people pleasing, letting things slide, developing an anxious attachment style, showing up for others and not myself, doing the thing for that individual first before me, it ended up crumbling. And from that day forward, I was so solid. I'm not going to people please. Now, I had tipped the scale too far. So I was way too on the people pleasing side and I went violent on the opposing to that. I was way too rigid, way too set solid. I let things slip and slide now. I might let a person do this. I might people please, but it's not from the want of people pleasing. It's from the want of understanding, maybe it's not worth it. Maybe I'll just do it this time. Maybe it's actually better for that individual that I do it. Maybe it's not that impactful for me and I don't need to stand solidly on the boundary just because it's a boundary. The better I'm getting at boundaries and self-respect, the less tight of the grip I have on it. I'm starting to loosen it, be more soft and gentle with it. The person that knows themselves well argues a lot less than the person with a huge ego that's brittle and fragile. And that's what I've noticed with myself. That the better or smarter or more set solid I'm becoming in things, the more I'm able to just loosen the grip and flow with it. And that is a special place to be. But it took me to go so far tipped on the scale to allow for that to happen. People pleasers are secondary characters in their own life. A secondary character to their own life. Imagine that. A movie about you as the main star and you're mentioned in the credits as the second person underneath, and the first main star is everyone else. You are living an experience that you actually don't want to live to please people you probably don't like or hold respect for, that don't give a fuck about you or care for your best interests. You shun the people that genuinely care and love for you because you're trying to show up for these other individuals. The ones that aren't there when it matters. The ones that aren't actually a part of the support network that you call on in times of detriment or struggle. So you push away what's real to welcome in what's fake. You push away real connections and relationships and emotional ties to welcome in these momentary likes, funny moments, laughs, invitations. You push away the real for the fake. You are a secondary character in something that you should be listed in first of the credits. It should say your name, not everyone else. A huge conflict that I also witness as a coach that dives deeper than fat loss and muscle gain, because we are focused on making life better for your future self, is the eventual point that the water boils, it gets to the boiling point and the pot tips over and we're in desire for change. We're ready for change. We're no longer wanting to be a people pleaser. We're over it. Yet you've built so many relationships and connections that have adjusted to you being a people pleaser. I remember I used to get FOMO when I wasn't invited to events. So I people pleased to be invited to events. And then I became a person that actually didn't want to be invited to these events. And individuals didn't like that. What do you mean the guy that used to stay out with me till 2 a.m. and get shit-faced and stuff for the next day actually doesn't want to come out now? You've changed. You're not that fun guy anymore. You're different. You're the issue. You then become painted for the issue because you're wanting to change. And in reality, there's ownership in you have now built relationships based on a version you aren't, and you're wanting to move into a version you are, your authentic self, but everyone's acclimatized and adjusted to this people-pleasing version. So, like I said initially, you can't avoid paying your taxes. You can't. You avoided it for a long, long time. But here's the tax bill, and you have to work it out because this is a big bill that's compounded and you're now fucked. What would have been little frictions consistently along the way is now this intense ball of wow. 90% of the relationships I've built are about to crumble or experience major friction because I am no longer the version that people pleases. This is why becoming a future self-caring individual is so important. Like, future self is not about stressing of your version in the future all the time. It is about making life easier for that person. That version of you, make it easier. It is so awkward to have a conversation right now that turns into an argument, but it's not awkward in the future because that version of you has now built solid self-respect, solid self-backing, and better relationships for doing so. We're so first in line to avoid the hard now and so willing to accept it later because for some reason we feel like we're going to be able to avoid it and you can't. The one thing I see that holds individuals back so much is we don't like choosing hard, so we'd rather just be in the experience of what's given to us. I don't like arguing with people. I'd rather just not deal with it. And the thing we then deal with is an internal conflict of not being our true self, not feeling heard, seen, or accepted. That then compounds into this massive disconnection and all this internal conflict later in life because you avoided choosing the hard and you just dealt with the hard you were given. But here's a thing you're forgetting. You can't avoid the hard. You can't, because you either choose it or you're given it. But either way, you're experiencing it. And this is what I see as being one of the biggest struggles is we're so willing to be given it because we're so scared to choose it. But we're so ignorant to the idea that it's unavoidable, where it has to be experienced at some point in time. That's why I love the tax analogy so much. No one likes putting $500 away a week for a year. But how grateful are you come tax time and you have $25,000 sitting there? So the person that hasn't put it away now is smacked with this $25,000 bill. The bill's still there. But one person has the money, one person doesn't. One person went through the chosen shitty hard, one person didn't, but now this experience is so much harder. I have so many recollections and recounts of people that build relos as a version they're not, that start families as a version they aren't, that accept a job that doesn't reflect who they truly are, that are doing things that isn't truly the person they are inside. And there's so many pathways we could go off this podcast from. So the one thing I just want to leave you on that note, without tangenting out into other areas, because there's so many podcast conversations you and I could have from this. Remember that little child version of you that is 5 years old, walking around in a field, innocent, with a world full of opportunity in front of them, thinking the world is inherently good and everyone is rooting for you. That version of you still lives inside. There's that version of you still inside you. Some people wear that version on their sleeve. Some people shun that version. But this is why. You might feel sad when someone lets you down or anxious when someone doesn't show up for you, because that version of you is inside. So when you're living a life inauthentic to you, disingenuine to who you are, you're playing a character, you are telling that version of you that they are not good enough as who they truly are. For those of you that tuned in on Spotify, there is always so much love. And for those that are watching on YouTube, I appreciate you so much. The YouTube channel at the moment has been thriving, and I have loved reading the comments, seeing the views, watching the feedback, and the community grow. I checked the Spotify statistics for the podcast, and it's in over 20 countries, which is mind-blowing. I looked at the graph, and there is red dots of those individuals tuning in everywhere. Thank you for being one of the first 3,000 subscriber in a million subscribed future channel. If you made it to the end, let me know. Curious who watches all the way to the very end and watches the signature sign out handshake. But on that note, that was episode 24. I'll see you in the next one.